just to get ideas.
But boss, you know I don't get any ideas.
Well, see that you don't.
Yes, people, how are you doing? Hope you're managing to stay mentally astute and alert, and don't forget your digital well-being as well. That's got to be maintained. This is Red Pill Phil on YouTube.
So they're the opposite of the free press.
We did it like that, and now we do it like this. We did it like that, and now we do it like this.
They claim to fight for liberty, but they're authoritarian as they come. So they're the opposite of the free press.
We did it like that, and now we do it like this. We did it like that, and now we do it like this.
Oh, I love that intro. I do love that intro. Welcome on, guys. Thank you for taking the time out. This is Red Pill Phil. I've got a very special guest today. A guest is a fellow member of the A-Team. If anyone's a frequenter to this channel, they'll know the A-Team is something that's close to my heart. If anyone remembers a film, a video that I featured on my channel, as well as Tony Bugle's channel, it was a video called Not in Our Country. A very profound video that got banned on Tony's channel. Now, the maker of that was a great guy called Jason, also a fellow member of the A-Team. So with that, I'm going to invite him into the stream because what this guy has uncovered, I think it's definitely worth a conversation. So here we go. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Phil, as I hope you are as well. And I'd just like to take this moment to thank you for inviting me on your channel, because your channel is one that I respect and I've watched closely since you started your channel. And it seems to be a channel where, you know, everything is up for discussion, but on a level playing field. And it is a channel in my eyes and my heart that is growing from strength to strength, mate. And it's because of your interviewing techniques and the way you cover a whole gambit of different topics and different discussions and things that really need to be answered, and asking the question, which I hope we're going to do today.
We are going to do today, mate. All I need to know now is, who do I make the check payable to? What the hell?
Well, you know.
I did say nice things, Jason, but I didn't expect you to go there with it. No, mate, honestly, that is fantastic. I'm glad people can see what I'm trying to do. This is all quite daunting, and it's a new dark road path that's in front of me. I don't know quite where I'm going with it, but I'm trying to have a sense of morality and a sense of evenness with whatever I do. And people might not like the direction, but hey ho, I don't even know fully the direction I'm going in yet because of the journey. The journey is forever changing. Yes. So thank you for recognizing that, mate. I am trying, you know, and it's supporters like yourself, I guess, it's keeping me going. You know, there's been many times I've wanted to just call it a day on this, and when I hear things like that, it really motivates me to keep it going, mate. So thank you, sir. The check will be in the post. Oh no, I'll have to do it digitally now, innit? You can't be touching anything.
I don't want none of that cash nonsense. You know?
Oh wow! Right, mate. Well, your insight and what's niggled you over the past week or so, we've been in like consultation in the background, is one that's worthy of talking about. Maybe many other people are talking about it, but there's other subjects that are probably just overshadowing what could be real vital talking points here. So rather than get into the conspiratorial and start going overboard and overreacting, we're trying to keep it on a level. So what you've discovered, mate, well, what we'll go to is this, okay? Psychological operations are operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. Now, what do you make of that in terms of that opposed to real life, Jason?
It's control, isn't it? I mean, it's in its bare essence, it's all about control. I mean, there's like psyops or government organizations that carry out things like this. They carry them out for a reason, and sometimes it could be a more sinister reason, or sometimes it could be you know, a more natural reason. But in its essence, it's all about control. But it's a control on a whole different level. You know, we're talking about the psychological control here. So that's how you carry yourself, how you think, what you think about, what you want to answer, how you perceive the question in the first place. So it's curtailment of thought policing, really, to tell you the truth.
If thought policing, what really worries me with this, Jason, is that most people think that we live under their own governance, in a sense. They've got an element of free will, and they do feel that they're not being psychologically steered because they do feel that they're in control of their own thoughts and their own patterns. But going off this model, this extends not just to army, but you're talking media, you're talking TV, you're talking radio. You literally
it basically, if you were to take it under a whole umbrella, it all works simultaneously, and certain aspects only get brought in when they deem it necessary, as the 77th Brigade. I mean, that was actually something that I missed, and probably because I don't watch TV that often. It's not a medium that I'll go and use as a go-to source of information, nor just as an entertainment purpose. I like to read, and I like to, if anything, watch documentaries and things that are enlightening more than curtailing the information that you're getting, or one-directional information, as it were. So basically, in truth, I'd actually missed it. I'd missed the daily briefing with the 77th Brigade's involvement. And it wasn't until a couple of days later that I'd actually looked up who these people were and who this General Nick Carter was, which sort of led me to do my little homework on what the 77th Brigade actually do. Now, they have a whole plethora of things that they do and are doing within this pandemic. But the one that I found the most sort of frightening, so to speak, was their involvement in curtailing information, or as they called it, an operational task force in psychological warfare to curtail freedom of speech. Now, that's what it is. It doesn't matter which way you want to play it, because what they're basically saying is you've got to abide by the government's narrative, or in the media's case, the BBC's narrative, which to me, that is one voice, that is one part of the jigsaw. Now,
sorry, mate, but didn't Orwell speak about that, the book 1984?
He certainly did, and unfortunately for us in 2020, I wish we had 2020 vision and 2020 clarity, but he did. 1984 has definitely, I wouldn't say the book itself was a catalyst, but it was definitely an insight to what was coming. And
unfortunately, he written it in 1948.
He certainly did, yes. Now, to say that it was just by chance that he managed to hit all these different markers is just not really, it's not feasible, is it? I mean, no. But we are now living in the age of information, the age of technology, but under very Orwellian conditions. Hence, like your CCTV, your facial recognition, all these things that was talked about, all these curtailments of society, which, like what you said, it comes down to freedoms. Now, that has different implications for different people. You can either be free in mind or free body and soul, which should all work together. But on certain levels, it doesn't within society, because society is it's a man-made construct. In order to have people in line and do what you want them to do, you have to have certain rules and regulations. But when it comes down to just freedom of speech or freedom of thought, which is something that is so natural. I mean, as human beings from birth, we question everything.
Jason, how do you suppose inventors invent things? Are they these loony little geeks that sit in lofts and devise these theories and these components that then can do spectacular things that then all of a sudden the world loves and the world, so how do you suppose you get someone who is an inventor, who is all about ingenuity, if he hasn't got that freedom to be able to critique his own narrative of what he feels? I.e., would you ever get a Tesla again under the premise of what we've got now? Because you have to really subscribe to a narrative, don't you?
Yes, not now, because everything that we see do is monetarized. There is no, I mean, if you look at everything within society, I mean, even going out to continents, like villages and things where the natural progressions, natural cures and everything that the big pharmacy don't want to touch because it basically contradicts what they're trying to sell. So when it comes down to invention, years and years ago, they had the freedom to invent and to invent for the greater good of mankind. But now, no, you wouldn't be able to have a Tesla now, because even Tesla hit upon many an invention, clean energy, using the Earth's own magnetism to create energy, all natural resources that they couldn't put a pound sign on.
But I guess what though, Jason? I mean, looking through I can't say this for all the magnificent inventors of the past, but particularly there's a common thread with the ones that I do know, in terms of Galileo and other people that have tried to change the curve of our perception of our life. Yes. Even then, even though they had the freedom and maybe the seclusion, maybe it meant they had to literally detach themselves from what they regarded as that society. But even they were chased down back in that day. I mean, Galileo got some major stick for his theories, even though, guess what happened? His theory ended up being the theory that we all pretty much follow as the modern model today. But yet, he was a heretic.
Yes, yes. And I think that was I don't know if that's inherently human nature, but I think it goes back to the question. We constantly ask questions. Now, we're not all going to agree with someone's synopsis or someone's evaluation of whatever they're trying to do. That's human nature as well. We as much as we can be unified, we're also divisive, if you know what I mean. It is inbuilt in us. But you're right. It's been a struggle to get to where we are now, without questions being asked and debate being had over the slightest of things. But I think the bigger picture is were these things curtailed because it was going to be a help to mankind or a hindrance? Or was it a case that society had evolved that much that it did come down to a monetary basis or a control basis without taking the money straight out of the equation? Was it about control? Did they look at these things and think, well, that is a great idea, but if we were to give people that for free, that's going to have a profound effect on society? So, it's multifaceted, isn't it? It really is.
Well, let's get a little bit back on track here in terms of all this is relevant in a sense of the 77th Brigade, okay?
Yes.
So you gladly sent me a link. Now, the link has got some sync problems at the very beginning, but the audio is still intact. So as I play this, guys, the visual may not kick in with the audio until so many seconds in, but the audio is still in place. So don't let that put you off from what he's actually saying. Now, before I play this, Jason, do you want to explain who this guy is and where he was? Although most people will know where he was, but just for the layman, please.
Yes, and basically, the guy in question is a General Nick Carter. He's very high up in the military and very high up in the 77th Brigade. Now, the 77th Brigade, what we know now is it deals in all different aspects, but one of its main dealings is psychological warfare. So to bring someone in at that level on national TV, on the BBC, no less, to tell people that we are now going to be vetting your social media, be it Twitter, be it YouTube, be it Facebook, be it any platform, to stop you bastardizing the narrative. Now, that is a narrative that has been given to us by the mainstream media. Now, when I say mainstream media, it's not. It's been given to us 24/7, 7 days a week by the BBC, not by any other media out in the United Kingdom, solely by the BBC. Now, it's off those two topics. People who don't know about the BBC was brought into play as a propaganda machine way back pre-war, before the radio hit the television and everything else. The BBC's whole ethos was propaganda, from the start to the finish. Now, if you look at what's going on now, we're now told that we've got the army involved, with the government's blessing, running as a psyops on mainstream sort of platforms like your Facebook, your Twitter, and
against the public.
Against the public. So which
wake up.
The BBC runs the daily briefing, so they dictate the narrative from what you get told about the virus or the pandemics, so to speak. They're now telling you that that is the only narrative that you should believe in. And everybody else that is questioning that, which is your God-given right to question anything, but you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have opinion. So that, to me, that takes it past an Orwellian state to a nanny state. That means that you're not intelligent enough to have a conversation nor have a different opinion from the one that's been projected to you by the so-called mainstream media. And
so that means we're not allowing you to have that opinion. How can you do that?
Exactly. Now, there's been many YouTubers and fellow Facebookers that have lost their accounts due to restrictions and their guidelines, what they deem is their guidelines. Even David Icke had his Facebook shut down.
Right, well, before we get into that, let's just play the clip, and then what we'll talk about is the positives and the negatives to what this man is talking about, and let people decide for themselves. For me, it seems sinister as fuck, but, there's no other way of saying it, sorry, mate, but let's play the clip, see what people think.
With our 77th Brigade helping to quash rumours from misinformation, but also to counter disinformation. Between 3,000 and 4,000 of our people have been involved, with around 20,000 available the whole time at high readiness.
So there's about 3,000 to 4,000 people involved, but there's 20,000 people available. Now, okay, so let's look at the pros to this. Is there any pros that you can extrapolate from this of why they would be there? Now, for me, I'll say firstly, we have had a wave of people wanting to go down one rabbit hole or another.
Yes.
Now, in some ways, do you think that's promoted these guys to jump in? Or in some ways, do you think that is sensible for them to now step in and go, hold on? That's my only positive. I don't know what you think about that.
I'd agree with that. I would agree with that because it's in a sense, because the only reason I'd agree with that, if things were getting out of hand on a social level, and it was beginning to affect the lockdown. I'd say people were demonstrating on the streets, mass gatherings, all these sort of things. But in another sense, a post on Facebook or a tweet or a YouTube video, really, I mean, it doesn't matter from what direction it's coming or what thought processes it's coming. Is that really that bad?
Is it what you would class as over proportionate?
Well, I would think so, because now it means that they're basically telling you that everybody's getting looked into. Everybody. No matter, obviously it'll deal with algorithms and probably keystrokes where you'll type a certain word or a certain word will be involved, and that will be a ping. They'll be able to jump on your channel, your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, pardon me, whatever. Which I find even more sinister. I mean, geez, Phil, they could be listening into this conversation right now.
Well, they will do. They will do, mate, because they have the thing called the algorithm. The algorithm listens to everyone and extrapolates keywords, bits of music, bits of title. Oh, you can't say this. We'll put a copyright content on that. And you've only spoke the actual word. You've only maybe played a segment. Even if you monetized or not, they can actually take that video down. They can mute it. They can delete your goddamn channel.
Yes.
So,
of which they did to David Icke. I mean, I think it's a shame. I mean, David had a million followers on his Facebook account. As much as David's his own entity.
I don't subscribe to everything David says, but he's got a right to say what he says, I guess, like anyone else.
And exactly, and that is the question that needs to be asked. I mean, what narrative are we to believe? Are we to believe what the government, the BBC, and the mainstream media are dictating to us? And then the secondary narrative of what the 77th Brigade deem is the narrative, and not disinformation. Unless you're going to be open, clear, and concise with the public on what the narrative is, it's very muddy waters as far as I'm concerned.
You feel it's almost that saying comes out over and over again, doesn't it, Jason? You fed bullshit and kept in the dark. Boy, I feel like a mushroom. You know what I mean? Because what other conclusion do you draw when you get people that are trying to gaslight you over here? You're getting people that are not giving you the full facts over there. And then the one that's giving you the perfect power in the middle is saying everything's going to be okay. Just listen to us.
Yes.
And you're the little man that's got very little say. You do try to question and boom. Oh, no, you can't be doing that. Boom, you can't be doing that. So does that not build an element of mistrust, even if, and I'm not suggesting this for a moment, but even if these psyops are done for the right reasons, does that not, what do people get from that? Is it positive?
Well, I think it's a negativity over positivity, because the way I look at it, to break it down into layman's terms, we won't agree on everything. So we ask the question, we have the debate, we have that conversation. Now, through that, you'll either agree to disagree or agree fully, but you've got the information there to do so. If you curtail a whole nation's internet, basically policing it, thought policing it, then what do you get? You get complete control, and you get the exact polar opposite. You're going to get people asking more questions, going more underground with their thinking, because you're basically telling them no.
But you've driven them there. You've took them there. You are making the public what is going to be classed as dissidents.
Cause and effect. Either the 77th Brigade was brought in as another sort of link in the chain, so the government knew if at one point they needed to utilise them, but they were brought in 3 weeks into lockdown, Phil. 3 weeks.
I mean, the bigger question, Jason, I've got to say this. I'm not going to just react over the fact that I've seen him publicly here now and then collate to the fact of, okay, that means that they're now actively working. The question I will scratch from that is, how long have they been working in the background?
Yes.
How long has that been a conception of the 77th Brigade in order to do? We know we've heard about this in America, and I'm sure every other country, you've got MI5, you've got all your other secretive agents doing this. But for them to make it so public, they're already organised. This is not something they've just thrown together in 5 minutes. How long have they been doing this, sir?
Exactly. Probably from the start of the outbreak, to judge. I think to possibly way back at the beginning to judge the public's perception of how, and it goes back to why, in my mind, I think it's crazy to curtail anybody's freedom of speech or thought process, because at the end of the day, if you don't agree with it, you don't watch it, you don't read it, you don't switch on to switch off. So it's a negative over positive reaction, because there is no positive outcome for you or I. There may be a positive outcome for government control and control of the narrative that they're pushing, but that doesn't work for the general populace.
Do you think they're not bothered about the dissident angle? Because on a psychologist level, I'm not qualified, mate, but any psychologist who works for the government now, any university that does these kind of studies into anthropology, they've got to extrapolate from this that you are going to do this to society by putting out these measures. We know this. We might not tell them that this is going to be the cause and effect. So one, do they not bother? Or two, are they doing it willfully, knowing that they can get you into what is regarded that dissident pigeonhole, that then the 2% of people that have got the balls to stand up, we can now castigate them as wrong-uns and get them out the way. And in reality, them 2%, there's probably a percentage of the 2% that have got common sense, that have got the right ideals, that have got a right moral compass for this, but you're squashing them as if they're like a terrorist almost.
1984, my friend, 1984. It's just an extension of what is. And as I said, I mean, if you look at the way that we're being told about things, things have been orchestrated, things have been implemented since the lockdown, it is all very one-directional. And the questions that Joe Public need answered, they'll never come to pass. Because even in the daily briefings, everything's scripted, and the best thing for them was when it went virtual, when it was just webcams. They didn't have the press in that room firing questions at them left, right, and centre.
And only invited press.
Exactly. And what I found the funniest thing, it just actually, I felt like banging my head against the wall when they thought it was a good idea to introduce one question from Joe Public. And the question that Joe Public was asking, you were like, if I had hair, I would have pulled it out, because it was so scripted that there was no point even having the question. It was not a question that the general populace was even interested in. It became farcical, and in which this whole thing became farcical. It's like, I feel like a child. I feel like that is the way the government and the overseers are treating me, like a child. I
feel like I'm in China.
Yeah.
I really do. Even though if I went to China, I would probably go, my God, get me back to the UK as quickly as possible. But all the fear over the past decade that I felt with, China emerging as a superpower and the way they treat the people and the conglomerate companies, how they all stick with China, and now China are now with this almost Lebensraum kind of mentality, living space to try to grab fucking intellectual property and minerals from all over the world. Yeah. I look at the way we're conducting it, and the only thing that's different is that the ethnicity is different and the accent is different, but ultimately I think the objective is exactly the same, although it's a light version of it that I do feel a large percentage of this population can't correlate. They can't see the journey where it's going.
Yeah, but then you hit upon it, Phil. It is this inherent sense of freedom that we have in this country, and that is people in general look at life, and we do to a certain aspect think that we're free, but on closer inspection on how the system works, you're mentally and physically incarcerated since birth, and that is the whole truth. I mean, you're a product of the system, and we spoke about it the other day there, that actually taking it to its extremes, but you are in essence a battery, and that is your job on this planet, is being a working class person. That is your job, You've to go to school. You have to achieve grades good enough that you can get a job that you will work for your whole entire existence, for the system, for the government, to be taxed heavily to the end of days when you get to retire, if you get to retire, and have nothing to show for it. So you're a commodity.
I was just going to say that. That's the perfect word, mate. It really is.
That's the truth.
It does feel like the energy source that we provide as a collective, it's as simple as we've just got to redirect the current, haven't we?
We have. That's a beautiful way of putting it, because at the end of the day, if the 99% worldwide can't come together, embrace each other on a level, you know, at a mental level, that we understand that we're all one. We're all one. We're all one race. We're the human race. We're mankind and womankind on this planet, and there is no difference. There is no difference, be it skin, color, culture, religion, creed. It really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. We have one thing in common, and that is we are the 99%, and we should be embracing that. But again, it's the same thing. Everybody's got their own thought process. Everybody's an individual, and I suppose it's going to take a long, long time until people actually wake up to the fact that unification of the 99 totally it eradicates the power of the 1%.
As easy as that. And I think going back to the 77th Brigade as well, on their duties and their objectives, as well as the media and everything else, it's organizations like that worldwide that have played the part in pulling us all apart and creating this division that means now we can't even hold an apple up and agree that we both like that fucking apple, Jason, because even that'll get politicized, you know?
Exactly. Or even you're holding that apple in the first place.
I'm
not going there. But
no, well, I mean, God forbid they hold up a banana, mate. Freaking hell. Like, what the hell? What's going to happen here?
He's breaking down the system. It's all gone wrong.
Mate, well, let me play a clip from Tucker Carlson that I played you before that's very relevant to what we're saying, and then we can come back to this.
In many places in this country, Americans cannot go to the park with their children. They can't go to church. They can't have family dinners with their relatives. They can't go to the dentist. They can't get a knee replacement. They can't get married. Tens of millions of them can't afford to do much of anything right now because they're unemployed. But they'd better not complain about it. If they voice their complaints online, they're liable to be censored by the tech companies. If they complain in public, they could be arrested, and a number of them have been.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? And I think in some aspects there it is a complete mirror image of what we're facing in the United Kingdom. But again, we seem to, in this country, we have this so-called stiff upper lip that it'll never happen here. Our government would never treat us like that. We have a strong sense of self and belief in the government.
Hold that thought, Jason. A quick update, a quick bulletin from the people that know.
With our 77th Brigade helping to quash rumours from misinformation, but also to counter disinformation. Between 3,000 and 4,000 of our people have been involved, with around 20,000 available the whole time at high risk.
About 20,000 people are there actively trying to stop you saying that, Jason. How's that make you feel?
The funny thing is we're hearing words like misinformation, disinformation. Jesus Christ, the government's been involved in disinformation since it was a conception. You know, that's what I don't get.
This is going off the assumption, Jason, that everything they're doing is the ultimate information. Everything they're doing is correct. And there's been no mistakes, no ill-judged mistakes made along the way. Now, I wouldn't mind this so much if every now and then they held the hand up and said, you know what, we did get this wrong. You know what, we didn't account for this happening. It does fit. Let me just play one more clip I took off because that really perfectly gets to what I'm kind of saying now, if that makes any sense. 1 second, Jason. Hopefully this is the right one?
We're currently living through the largest and most expensive experiment ever conducted in human history. We have spent trillions of dollars and crushed millions of people purely on the guess that a nationwide lockdown would save us from the coronavirus.
We're in the land of the unknown.
We are, and we were not. And it leads me on to another question that I believe needs answered. Exercise sickness. That was a government-led exercise under Theresa May in 2016, which only it was I think it was the NHS England that were the participants of this exercise. And when I say exercise, it was a mock pandemic, a respiratory mock pandemic, and it was run over 3 days just to see how this country, the mighty United Kingdom, would deal with such a pandemic. And it failed that miserably that the report and the results were terrifying. Terrifying. Now, that's not a terminology or a use of words I would like to hear when we were running a mock pandemic 4 years ago. 4 years ago. Surely that would have been the biggest insight and the biggest wake-up call to the government for funding for the NHS first and foremost. And it ticked every box of the failings that's happening now.
Sure.
It was the same thing. Lack of PPE, lack of ventilators, lack of doctors and nurses, lack of infrastructure to actually deal with a respiratory pandemic of which we're facing now.
Jason, we're both professionals. We're both brothers of the brush, incidentally.
Yes, we are.
You know, if we were so woeful in our job in terms of the logistics and getting things wrong and having a 4-year time span and still getting it fucking wrong at the end of that, do you expect to be employed? If these guys were doing, we're professionals. We know that we can't make mistakes. I get you. Sorry.
So
if we done the same thing as them in our professional capacity, what would we look like?
You'd be sacked within a minute, and you'd be down the road. You know, and that is the truth of the matter. If we make a mistake in someone's house, you learn by that mistake and you rectify it. That is it. You rectify that mistake. So as your client's happy, you're happy with the job you've given, and everybody's happy. But when you've got a 4-year window of a mock pandemic at the time, but your country failed that miserably that it caused the collapse of the NHS, questions need to be asked. Mm-hmm. And what was learned? Mm-hmm. Now, did it come down to, I mean, this is even crazier. On the weekend before lockdown, the government downgraded the virus. They downgraded it. Now that wasn't just that was Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales that downgraded the virus category. So as the PPE that we actually had in hand, it basically fitted the bill. So it just beggars belief. It really does. Are we looking at is it a monetary thing? Or is it just the fact that they thought they just banked all their thoughts on the never, as if it was never, ever going to happen? But for me, being forearmed is forewarned.
Well, what's strange about that is the never. They seem to tell you that the world's going to end in 11 years if you don't sort out your carbon. You know, when they seem to have all these initiatives to make the world a better place, but they're trying to say that they didn't have their eye on this or they didn't have contingency plans 4 years previous. You're not going to work that out, because even one death is terrible if you've had 4 years, because you shouldn't. To have this amount of deaths, and one thing which leads on to this now, the actual figures and statistics that they're releasing. Let's jump onto that for a little section, Jason. Do you think that they are trying to put people, ease people's minds with the information that they are disseminating, or do you think that it almost works as heavy as the actual virus itself in terms of the fear that it generates?
I think it's well, to put you in the picture, Phil. I've watched the Worldometer since the pandemic started, or since lockdown started, and at that very instance, first week of lockdown, the figures seem to be pretty concurrent. That every country was putting out the amount of people infected, the amount of people recovered, the amount of people that were serious and critical. Week one. Week two in Britain, and it was only 2 days into week two, where we had 335 people recovered. After that day, our statistics of people that recovered for the past 6 weeks has been nil and available. None available.
Says it here. If anyone's looking at this screenshot here now, you've got 2 rings that Jason has very artistically lined out there. I don't know what was going on there, mate. But the one on the left-hand side, it's got NA. That is where you can see the other countries. Oh, not all of them. I think you've got a couple of other countries that are not providing that information. Yeah. But you can see the majority of other countries got no problem. Now, you can see as well, by looking at that, it will give you a sense, like you said, Jason, by including that figure, does that not spread a sense of hope to people that things are getting better?
Of course it does. On my analysis of this Worldometer since over 6 weeks now, I see countries like even Germany, 138,000 recovered. It's all these different countries given what I would say that having no statistics or no numbers available, it presents fear, it causes fear, because you're not seeing a positive from this. You're looking at all these other countries and saying, well, how are they recovering? What are we not doing that they're doing so as people are recovering? Of course, it's a psychological thing. A positive can be taken from it, because at least you can say, I think at this present moment, we're 27,110 deceased, sadly taken by this virus nationwide. But if we were seeing that 250,000 of the populace had recovered and came out of hospital and said, that would have been a completely different ballpark. But then
what do you think the reason is why they're not including it? Because let's put it this way, Jason. It can't be because they can't get that data. If they can provide the data of how many deaths, why can't they provide the data of how many are being cured from it? It's just as easy. Exactly.
But as I said, week two, third day in, that was it. Now, who's curtailing that? It's not a positive. It is definitely not a positive. In fact,
Newsflash, mate. Newsflash. We need another bulletin from the 77th Brigade. Hold on.
Our 77th Brigade, helping to quash rumours from misinformation.
Sorry. I don't know where that comes from, mate. Jesus Christ.
If I hear my door go, I'm off.
I tell you, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my T-shirt on inside out. They'll never be able to recognise me.
Do you see me?
Blend into the couch. Mate, well, let me just play this next one by Tucker, and let's see what your opinion is on this one, my friend.
Perfect.
The whims of our political leaders are now unquestioned law. Dissent has been banned, and that ban is relentlessly enforced by the willing stooges in our media who have finally stopped pretending they don't hate you. They definitely do. What country is this? Well, it's a country in a lockdown. We're told we have no choice but to do this, to stop our lives completely. Mass quarantines, they tell us again and again, are the only way to save lives. But that's a lie.
It most definitely is. I mean, exercise sickness proved that. They proved that over a 3-day period. Now, that they taken into what was taken into consideration was everything that has been implemented now. They had a lockdown. They had every single thing. It ticks all the boxes of what we're seeing getting played out now, and we failed miserably. Now, the only thing that I found in a contradiction in the numbers that we're seeing is we're a population of 69.4 million, and there has been 21,110 deaths, sadly lost in the country because of this pandemic. The numbers don't add up for a complete lockdown of a country. Doesn't it?
It's
There's not one. It would be completely different, Phil, if we were seeing, God forbid, but deaths on the streets, ambulances, people getting taken out their houses, drastically ill. Then and only then would I say that would be a time for panic and fear, quite rightly so, a nationwide fear to implement such things as a lockdown. But to have a lockdown in place when we don't know the longevity of this, we don't know what the end tally figures is going to be, and a great sad loss in this country.
Well, in terms of deaths, mate, no, you're right, and it will probably keep going on a drip level until it, subsides totally.
Until it dissipates.
What we do know, mate, sorry, just to put in there, what we do know is what they're going to do with that information and how they're going to really rally everyone round into this fear. This fear which will ultimately pull them into an area of control, which is very scary. Yes. Now, if you've got a country that will cut and do a lockdown, you've got to find, okay, we can weigh up what may happen, but ultimately what we do know that will happen will be a depression, and what will come with that? How many deaths? How many people of abuse, domestic abuse, alcoholism, all this that's going to be attributed with what will become a recession and then a depression. Jobs, the houses that will go. So then you've got to weigh all that up, like you say, with them fundamental figures and say, even though what is going on now, is there any other way we can officially or efficiently contain this, but yet still keep the economy bubbling? Because that's what's definitely going to happen if we shut the economy down. Now, it's bad enough if one country does it. The fact that the whole goddamn world has done it, mate.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always said this, and I know that it's not ethically possible, and it's not actually. Well, I don't know if it ever is. Wipe the debt. Wipe the debt. We make the money. Money's man-made, and in most cases, it's an illusion. Because when you get up to the upper echelons of society, they don't use money. It's just a number. It's just this entity that drives the world. Now, wipe the debt. Start again. If this pandemic's going to be enough to kill the global infrastructure, stop it. Start again. We've got the power to do it. I mean, over this, we've seen what they did with the NHS in this country. They wiped the debt.
You can do. I mean, for anyone who looks at that and go, bloody hell, Jason, how can you just wipe debt of trillions? No, what you can do is get to the simple point of fractional reserve banking is the most fake form of finance that you could ever have. It generates money from nothing on the fact of he's got that, so let's multiply it by a factor of 4 and we'll borrow you that and then we'll do that. And so it's nothing. It's literally you can take it away as quick as you can give it. It's a fallacy.
It's a fugazi. It just it doesn't exist. It's a fake. It's manipulated figures for the system, and that is one of the ways. But I think where we are now, we're sitting on the so-called cusp of something, and I think that's within everybody. Everybody's thought process has changed over this whole course of this lockdown and pandemic. Hence, I've had dark days. I've had dark weeks, for God's sake. I live on my own. I'm separated from my ex-partner, so I can't see my twins without social distancing. I can't do all these things, all these curtailments, mentally and physically, which is going to have a lasting effect. I mean,
how are you and your family coping with that?
I think we're coping like everybody else is coping. I mean, do you know what, mate? I'd love to hug you right now. I'd love to hug my kids. I'd love to hold my mum and dad that you know, they're getting on a bit. And that was a psychological thing that I went through as well. I thought, well, how long is this going to last? You know, what if something happened to my mum and dad? God forbid, what if something happened to anybody, really? And I think what has happened now, because of this lockdown, because of social distancing, because of the psychological and mental effects of it, humanitarian effects. I mean, we are humanity. We like to kiss, we like to cuddle, we like to embrace, we like to engage, we like to do all of these things that we're told now is deemed a no-no, as well as you're not allowed to think. So
for me, that's what's going to happen rolling out. You can't just all of a sudden go back to hugging each other. Can I just tell you one quick story, because it's really relevant? I went out for a run just after we spoke this morning, right? And I was running in the local park. You've got a wide pathway that works its way around the park, lovely green, all this kind of stuff. The walkway itself is probably about 8 feet wide, right? Yeah. I'm walking up this little bit of a hill, and I'm on the deliberate left-hand side of this 8-foot wide walkway. On the right-hand side is an older gentleman, probably in his 60s, maybe 70s, hat on, walking down. Totally, when you come to social distancing, we're totally compliant with that, yeah? Do you know what he done? Now, I can understand it on different levels, but there's some part of it that's gone, I don't understand it. As he walked past me, bearing in mind we've got an 8-foot gap, and we're moving. I'm not coming up to approach him. He puts a hanky over his mouth as he walks past.
Yeah.
I'm not getting touchy about that. But that tells me that something deep within his psyche means that he is not going to then roll out after 3 weeks and all of a sudden start sitting around people.
It's the change in society, it really is. And unfortunately now, Phil, as much as that change is going to be drip-fed to get back to some sort of normality, the restrictions are still going to be in play. And I think people need to be mindful of that. There is still going to be social distancing. There is still going to be mandatory face coverings. There is still going to be all the implications of a lockdown in place, but with the so-called freedom of being able to have a lesser restrictive time going outside. This is going to, what they've done mentally and physically to society from children up has changed the whole dynamics of humanity. They've done it in 6 weeks, Phil.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. I mean, for me, 9/11 was a fundamental perception bender. I'm sure it's been going on for years, but I only really got onto it as in the consequences, where it was going to go, the lies that made that happen as well, and the division and everything that's happened across the world. Now, the Arab world, the Muslim world hate us, we hate them. It's that kind of situation. Now we're turning to Africa. Africa hates us, we hate Africa. We don't want any of them anywhere near us. All that. It couldn't be any more separatist than that. Now, that has took, what would you say, 20 years for that, from that event? This has took, like you say, less than 6 months. Yeah, less than fucking 3 months.
And that is the biggest question. And going back to the stats and the statistics, it's the anomalies. I mean, I don't know if everybody's followed the same. You can follow it. It's called the Worldometer, and it gives you the stats. Since day one in this country, we have had 1,559 serious and critical since day one. But yet we're now sitting at 27,110 fatalities. Surely the serious and critical rate would fluctuate. It would go down and it would go up, but it hasn't. Every other country in the world, it has. So again, it goes back to this mental curtailment. Why? Are we not adult enough to take these statistics and work it out for ourselves? Are we not adult enough to think outside the box and think, well, you know, that's bad, but at least the recovery rate's up here, you know? But to give no credence to that information whatsoever, it begs the question, why? Why are you curtailing our multimedia? Why are you deplatforming people because they're speaking out, or not even speaking out? They've just got a different sort of thought process on what's actually happening. It's draconian and it's Orwellian. And to what ends? How? I mean, there's been talk of we'll need to live with the virus. For how long, Phil? I mean, is this going to be for life if they can't find the vaccine? Is this going to be? I mean, we spoke earlier about my brother. My brother has been in hospital twice, made 2 hospital visits, to which both times was told he was positive. He had COVID-19 without one single test. Now, to me, if you want to start trace testing, that is where you start. People that have allegedly had the virus, but it's not been serious enough to be completely hospitalized or put on a ventilator or to ICU, you start there, because surely that shows you the longevity of the virus, because my brother's been ill for over 7-8 weeks now. Some days he's fine, other days he can't breathe. So would not be the best place to start. Not so much the asymptomatic testing that would tell you if someone, well, I don't think it can tell you if you've had it or it's just all pie in the sky. Surely that is a trace test. My mum's been ill with the same symptoms. So, and again, been told that she had it. But without testing, at that infancy, at that level, it's just all pie in the sky. It's going to take years and years and years to collate all the information from all the different demographics in society to come to a conclusion.
Well, we were talking about this before. I mean, with the amount of people that recover, you could get so much information just from them figures, because that'll be a pie chart in terms of how many demographics are contained within that figure, and then what has been the positives why they've recovered within that demographic or within them peoples per se. Right, that 1,000 people, 2,000 people, let's study them. Let's see what traits they've got or what, fundamental they then recover in that way. And then we can apply that to people that are going through it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they've got no chance because maybe genetically they're not on par. I have no idea. But without that figure, how the freaking hell can anyone else do a case study?
And why is that never spoken about? Why is it never spoken about? It doesn't seem to be common knowledge that people actually, the information is out there to say, right, this is the longevity of it. Maybe it causes irreparable damage to your nervous system, to your lung system. But you'll never know that unless you're testing people that have been so-called shown the symptoms. It becomes null and void. I mean, I remember when they were first testing, they said that they were testing people that were in hospital in that environment. Well, unfortunately for me, I'm not a scientist nor a medic, but that's too much too late. Or too little too late, sorry. It just doesn't make sense. There's no common sense to do that. In order to eradicate a virus, you need to find ground zero. You need to find the patient that it first started with in your country and patients, and you work from then. Simple.
Yeah. Right. Well, this has been going for the best part of an hour now, Jason. Before, what I want to do, I want to end this in the next 5 minutes, and I want to come back on and do another segment with you.
Right. Okay.
This segment is going to be more musically based, yeah?
Right. Okay.
Because I feel now, if we go into half an hour of the music, I feel that will be lost. If you know what I mean, I feel we need to bring that back to the forward. So the only way to do that is to do a totally different half an hour segment or something like that where we can do it. Yeah. So knowing that, mate, what positives or what positive words could you say? Because we don't want to put the negative message, psyops, we're all under it. What can people do to make themselves feel more empowered and enriched, knowing that, and what can they do moving forward for them? What is the best things?
I think it's a state humanity in the art of conversation. Being able to convalesce with each other and hold conversations, The communication is key throughout this. We're isolated, mentally and physically isolated at the moment. People need to come back together. And I've even tried to make a change, small changes in my life when I am going to the shops or I am letting on to people, because I miss that. I miss humanity. And I think at the end of the day, humanity will be the driving force that will see us through. Because to coin a phrase, humanity is love at the end of the day. That is one of the biggest, most powerful emotions that we carry as a human race. And if we can just use as a small...
Jason, sorry, mate. The Matrix is calling.
With our 77 Brigade helping to quash rumours from misinformation, but also to counter disinformation. So, mate, it's scary. It's a little bit of love, a little bit of understanding, and a little bit of humanity. That's going to see us through at the end of the day. But we can only do that together, and that's the truth.
You know what I've noticed, Jason? I think the mentally strong, the physically strong, the astute people will survive. The beauty of it is, I don't think there's an age you can put with that. I don't think there's a colour you can put with that. There's certainly not any type of mindset you can put with that. I so resonate with what you're saying. As well as I'm getting people that are freaking out and putting tissues over their mouth, that's really isolated. But what I'm seeing in the majority of that, people are going out the way to be nice as you're walking past them in the park, because they're missing that humanity. And I feel that maybe on occasion they probably wouldn't interject with people because they're just too busy in their own busy lives and getting caught up in the hustle and bustle. This is kind of make people contemplate and realize we are humans, and what they're doing is taking that humanity from us, and they're almost treating us like we should be a robot. And my emotional levels, I can't take this, so I've got to actually, show some form of civility to a fellow human being.
It's human interaction, and that is one of the. And this actually got brought up. I think it was this morning. They were talking about the actual restrictions, and I mean human interaction restrictions of wearing face coverings. If I'm walking past you, still social distancing, mind you, I could be smiling at you, but you'll never know. So it's all these things that it's going to take a lot of adjustment to actually get used to this, because the human face is one of the most expressional things on the planet. We can smile with our eyes. You can tell how someone's feeling just by their face. But when you took all that away, and that becomes the norm in society, are we ever going to be able to bypass social distancing? So we need to make those small steps for each other. We really do. It's the only way forward. And I think a lot of people are going to come out the end of this as better people, myself included. Yeah. And that's the truth.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard slog to get yourself to that state, but you can see the dividends of doing it. There's almost something positive out of all this. And it sounds really almost like you're on the verge of getting attacked in the comment section for saying that, because you shouldn't be thinking that. But if you personalize everything and what it could mean to you and what you could utilize out of this shit, you could actually make wine on a personal level out of this. Mate, this has been such a brilliant conversation. As ever, you know what we like. We can go up and down on very many different topics. So I'm glad that we've managed to be able to contain it without going round the houses and back,
We did. And my little notes helped.
Excellent. It worked. I normally make notes, and I've just gone totally off the fly here because, I knew the info was mainly coming from yourself in regards to the 77 Brigade, and I knew I could just interject, and I knew what we're like when we have conversations anyway. So, mate, it's been absolutely brilliant. Is there any way people can get in touch with you if they decide, they want to look up what the Jason from the A-Team is all about?
I'd actually probably have to start a channel or something, but I think, truthfully and honestly, I would like to see a nice interjection in comments. So I'll be reading the comments back, and I can maybe interject and have conversation. And I think, who knows, even maybe pass on an email, maybe. And that is the way that it should be working. And that's why I find the curtailment, asking the question, having the conversation, it's wrong. So that is one thing I'll be looking forward to. Is every video you've ever done, Phil, I love the comment section. Even the pissing haters.
Hey, you've just killed me jingle now.
Sorry.
So it's all right, mate. I don't mind you jumping in there because you've probably done a better job than I did on the jingle. So I'm still going to play it anyway. So what I'd say, mate, thank you for taking the time out to spend this time to have this chat. Hopefully it's going to be beneficial to other people. Don't go off the line, because as soon as this is done, we're going to carry on and we're going to come on another vein. But for people watching this next segment will be on a totally different upload. So keep your eye on that. The Mighty Jason, one of the A-Team. I'm proud to say I'm affiliated with this crew. They're brilliant. Look out for the A-Team in 2021 and ongoing, because obviously what's going on in the background, you can see that they're very positive people. So, mate, I love you. I love you.
Absolutely.
Mate, we'll see you on the other side, yeah?
See you on the other side, Phil. Cheers.
Right, guys, there's only one thing I can say.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Even the pissing haters.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.